Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. We're not going to start with chapstick or Tillamook because as you can see we got stuff going on, and as you can see from the title, we're about to get down and dirty in a very clean way. But for those of you who are new here, hello, my name is Dion. I call this channel the Crazy Troll Nation of YouTube. The crazy, just enjoying doing videos, knowing it's okay to let your authentic personality shine through. And the troll part is not caring too much about the beauty community standards. You set the standard for yourself. Try not to feel like you need to use a certain brand or a certain tool or a certain technique. Use whatever you want to, however you want to, because you need to be satisfied with your makeup. Just wear it and rock it. The bottom line here at the Crazy Troll Nation is self-love and self-acceptance. Embracing your natural features, enhancing them if you want to, when you want to, but never feeling like you have to. That's what we stand for here. And if you're new here, I need to let you know I do curse on my channel sometimes. I do try to catch myself. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So thank you for being here. And if you're returning, thank you. If you enjoy this video, it's going to be controversial. Some people are not going to like what I have to say. And you will never hear me say, don't come for me, you know, be nice. Say what you feel. Whatever, you know, we're grown here. I'm going to say the situation. I'm going to say what I've learned. I'm going to say what I've done wrong. And I'm going to give you some facts. That's what we're going to do here. I'm not bashing the brand. You see from the title, we're talking about Ensley. They make beautiful palettes. They make beautiful palettes. They do. And I cannot show you Harvest Moon because it is boxed back up. This is the box they sent it in, all the original packaging. This is in my Macari store, and I went back and forth for days and days about whether or not to even do this video, because I know how some viewers can be, and sometimes it's just like I just want to do makeup, you know. I don't want whatever the backlash or whatever. And I've done videos before just sharing my experience, and those of you who have been here for a while, you know me, you know how I am, you understand where I'm coming from. But then there's other people that don't, or there's diehard stands for brands, and it's just like, how dare you? And I'm like, did you listen to what I said in the video though? I will never say don't support a brand. I will still say what's good about the brand. Just because my experience is what it is, it doesn't mean I'm bashing the brand. I'm not into the cancel culture. If there's something about a particular brand I don't like, I just won't buy from them, and you will never know. You know what I'm saying? So it's not even about trying to put any brand on blast or whatever. I'm just going to share my experience. And actually, I'll put a picture up here of what the palette is. And so let me start at the beginning. And as I said, I went back and forth on whether or not to even share, but I felt obligated to share because I do like to encourage and motivate you on this channel. Try new things, do new things. And, you know, when I talk about, you know, hauls or declutters, being a conscientious consumer, things like that, and having sensitive eyelids and sensitive skin, me and pressed pigments on my eyelids are a no-no. And so I feel obligated on behalf of everyone with sensitive lids, whether they watch me or not, to put the information out there that may help them if they're thinking about a certain brand or a certain palette. And I will say this also, everyone with sensitive lids, we don't have the same allergic reactions to the same ingredients. And so I am not the spokesperson for sensitive eyelid, can't wear pressed pigment shadows on my lids, but my hope is that what I say will, number one, help someone else who has sensitive lids, and number two, just bring awareness to those people who don't, just so they can have some understanding. Because I hear a lot about FDA is behind, what's the big deal? If you have certain sensitivities, it's a big deal. When you have those horrible reactions, and for me, mine lasts up to 3 days, that's a big deal. And so the obligation on that part, being number two, is just to bring awareness and to just hope that people who don't have these sensitivities and allergies will have some empathy for those of us who do, and not just brush it off like, oh, well, just don't buy it. Well, sometimes we don't know until we buy it. And that leads me to this. So the palette came out, And I looked at it and I'm like, wow, that's really pretty. And my first thought was, I'm not going to get it though, because it's 2 rows of shimmers, metallics, dual chromes, and then it's just the 1 row of mattes. Y'all know I like the dark and smoky, but then as I kept looking at it, I'm like, that is a grungy palette though. And then I thought, it's $88.80. Who knows how long it's going to take to get here? So I'm like, I'm not going to buy it. And so my first instinct was not to buy it. I had never purchased from Ensley Rain before. And then, you know, I started hearing hype about the palette. And I was like, oh, damn. So then I started thinking like, So I'm looking at the ingredients on the website. And some of the ingredients are pressed pigment ingredients. This is where it gets tricky. The FDA approves a small percentage of pressed pigments to be in the eyeshadows, to still call them eyeshadows. I will put a video in the iCards, which you can also find in the description box, and you can find it below the description box, where I talked about pressed pigments. And just to, again, bringing awareness to those of us who have sensitivities, and to bring information to those who don't have sensitivities to understand like why it's a big deal to those of us who can't use those types of products. And I want to say 15%, but I'm not sure. Do not quote me on that. So it has to be below a certain percent of pressed pigment ingredients in it for it to be called an eyeshadow. And if you look on the back of Glamlight, Morphe, I think Jeffree Star, who else does it? Nomad had did it. On the back of the palettes and the Norvina, some of the larger palettes, it'll list the shadow names, and it'll say, these are pressed pigments not approved for use around the eye area. FDA requires that disclaimer. Here in the United States, overseas, it's acceptable. They can use pressed pigments there. So that's another thing I look at. Like, where is this brand? If they're in the United States, then I know they need to put a disclaimer and say these are pressed pigments. But even still, here we are, not for the first time. So it's a continuing learning experience for me. And so I'm looking at the ingredients, and I'm just like, I know some of those are pressed pigment ingredients, and I'm looking at where they are on the list. They're at the bottom of the list because there's ingredients for the matte shadows and there's ingredients for the dual chrome multi-chromes. And I'm like, I don't know. And even a close friend of mine, she was like, I don't know about them ingredients. And I'm like, but it doesn't say they're not FDA approved. It doesn't say not safe for eye area. It doesn't say pressed pigments. And so eyeshadow, right? And so I went ahead and purchased it. And I opened the package. On the back of the palette, at the top, it says pressed pigment palette. This was my reaction. I was like, this ain't say this on the website. It did not. And I went to the website to look again, like maybe I overlooked it. It was not. So I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, are you kidding me? With taxes and everything, I spent almost $100 for this palette. Took about a month to get here. And now I'm seeing it says pressed pigment palette. So I was like, what the fuck? But I was also angry at myself. Here's my accountability. My first gut instinct was not to buy that palette. And I said to myself, I'm not going to buy that palette. I looked at the ingredients and I was like, I'm not sure. But then I'm like, well, it doesn't say pressed pigment. It doesn't say, not eye safe. And so I talked myself into it. That's my part. So I was pissed off at myself by not going with my gut instinct. My first impression was don't buy it. And I'm usually good about not shopping according to hype. I do like palettes that are unique to my collection. And that is a very unique palette. I talked myself into it. That was my mistake. My first instinct was don't buy it. and then I purchased it. I own it. So come for me in the comments saying I didn't take any accountability, because I've heard that before. And I'm like, but did you listen to the video? So the continuing lesson for me is, at the ripe old age of 54, is to pay attention to my first instinct and not get caught up in the hype, which I usually don't. But it was just something about it. And I was just like, that's very unique. It's very pretty. But my gut was like, don't buy it. And I purchased it. So that's on me. And I was very angry at myself, and also frustrated and annoyed that $100, and a month later, now I'm seeing it says pressed pigment palette. That information wasn't on the website. So I'm like, what the fuck? And so I went back and forth with like, what do I do? And I thought, I'll just sell it on Mercari, not even try it, not even use it. I'll contact the brand. Previously, they have an affiliate program. The link is on their website. I did that back like the end of November, and it still said it was verifying, which it can be verified in like less than a week, but it was like over a month now at this point, right? Actually, it was over a month, because I put in for that at the end of November. I received the palette January 2nd. And I had emailed about, I put in for this, is there a time frame to find out if it goes through? And I also IG DM'd them. I had heard nothing back from the brand. And so I'm like, okay, I already have a short history of emailing and IG DMing and them not responding to me. But I said, I'm still going to do everything I can. So I sent them another message on Instagram. Didn't think I was going to hear back. Sent another message on email, with what the situation was and blah, blah, blah. They replied to my DM, and they replied to my email within 3 hours. Good customer service, I will say that. So don't say I'm bashing the brand, because I'm not. Customer service was good. I don't know if it was because I had a problem or not. I don't know. But they were responsive. Within 3 hours, I had a reply to both. And so then I asked about the affiliate thing. Because I know people do love Ensley Rain. So like, hey, if they're going to give me an affiliate code, I will go with it. But so your customer service for me was really good. I was annoyed still because the email was the general stuff. If you're have allergies to certain ingredients, and I already know that. And I think some brands don't really understand the differences or the importance of pressed pigments versus eyeshadows. Because as I said, FDA approves a small percentage of pressed pigments to be in your eyeshadow, to call it eyeshadow. And so to say this is an eyeshadow palette, or to not say on your website it's a pressed pigment palette, but you put pressed pigment palette on the palette, so you don't see it till you get it. So it's like, And the thing with, I mentioned in the video I did about pressed pigments, heavy metals in our makeup, was, for me, it depends on how much. Some shadows with carmine irritate the hell out of my lids. And some shadows with carmine, they don't bother me at all. And so my personal conclusion is it depends on how much. And the same with some of the pressed pigment ingredients. And also when one of my trollkin, she had sent to me DD's Signature, the Classic Autumn Palette. I'm reading the back of this. And like the last third of the ingredients are pressed pigment ingredients. And I was just like, fuck. I was like, But you know what? I tried it. I had no problem with any of these shadows. And it does say, look, eyeshadow palette. So that tells me, even though there's trace amounts of pressed pigments, which the FDA allows, you can still call it an eyeshadow palette, meaning everything that's on here is approved safe for the eyes. And so when I saw a pressed pigment palette on the palette for Ensley Rain Harvest Moon, I was like, wait a minute. And so to say we have our ingredients there, okay, but how much? These last 2.5 sentences are pressed pigment ingredients. And so it's below the amount, I'm guessing, that the FDA approves for it to still be called an eyeshadow palette. But you're going to send me this thing, and it's going to say pressed pigment palette. So I'm just like, And so just to say, look at the ingredients, It depends on how much. And for me, it needs to be below what the FDA says, or at least at where the FDA says, for it not to have, for me not to have a bad reaction. And so this is the educational part. Also, people have told me do a patch test. Well, my eyelids are different. It's a different type of skin than the inside of my elbow or on my neck or on my face. I can wear pressed pigment stuff on my face, but not my eyelids. And so telling me, okay, do a patch test, that's not going to tell me if it's going to irritate my lids and make my eyeballs swell up. True story, my eyeballs will swell up from using pressed pigments on my lids. And so it was just like a standard reply. So I was kind of annoyed at that. And I asked about return policy. And, I've read their return policy online, a few times. It's a restock fee. And I'm like, I paid almost $100 for this palette and waited a month for it. I do not want to put any more money into this palette. I'll say it again. My gut feeling said don't buy it. I bought it. So don't come for me. I'm not going to say don't come for me. Come for me and say I didn't take accountability. I'm telling you again, my gut said don't buy it and I bought it. That's on me. That's on me. And even my friend was like, are you sure, the ingredients? And I'm like, well, it doesn't say pressed pigments. It doesn't say not eye safe. And so I still did it. So I was pissed off at myself. I was annoyed at the brand. And also I didn't want to pay to send it back. I had to pay like $15 to get it. So I'm like, I'm not putting any more money into it. I said, I'll just put it in my Mercari store. And then I was still just like, but what if it doesn't irritate my lids? Guess what it did? I tried the palette. I tried 16 of the shades, and it was all the shimmer ones, the metallic ones. And so it's in my Mercari store. I'm hoping just to break even on it, to be honest with you. There are a few other sellers on Mercari selling their Harvest Moons. The few I saw, though, some are brand new. Mine is used. And so, excuse me, and I know people go to Mercari looking for good deals. And so paying like $80, $90 for a palette may not seem like a good deal because you can buy it new if it's still available. You will have to wait like a month to get it, but still. So anyway, so I'm hoping at this point just to break even. But I still tried it because I said, what if it doesn't irritate my lids? Because I would rather sell new than sell used. You know what I'm saying? But it did irritate my lids. And so I was like, okay. So another thing that I thought about was, because me and my late night, early morning chat bestie, we were going back and forth about it. And I said, I think what another problem is for the small indie brands that are hand mixing their shadows, their products. Are you like a chef and you just eyeballing it? Or me that's a non-chef, I measure everything. Like, do you really know exactly how much of this one particular ingredient is in this mix? If you have your table set up like a chemistry set, stuff can go anywhere. They don't have peanuts on airplanes anymore because even just the nut stuff in the air, people were having, attacks. So there's no peanuts on the planes. And so stuff can get in the air and get into product even if you don't put it in that product. But knowing that there's certain ingredients in there, the FDA says it needs to be under a certain amount, or you have to do a disclaimer, it's not eye safe, and you have to say it's pressed pigments. If you don't do those two things, to me, it's an eyeshadow palette. And you're promoting it as an eyeshadow palette to put on your eyelids. And I think, and I was telling Bestie, late night, early morning chat bestie, I think that's one of, that may be, I don't know for sure, I'm not there where they're mixing up their stuff, but I think that might be part of it, is that they're just maybe just dumping stuff in. And even if certain ingredients are approved as eye safe, if you go over a certain percentage of the pressed pigment ingredients, they're not considered eye safe. And so this is the part that made me want to do the video, that I felt compelled to do the video, because this is information here. So just because they're saying it's formulated to be eye safe, how much of each particular ingredient is in each one of those pans? Do you really know that? Because if you don't, then how can you assure me that it's eye safe? I mentioned in a video before, I'm allergic to avocado. I can eat like sushi rolls. Some of them it has a strip of avocado. I can eat a sushi roll and I'm fine. If I eat guacamole, if I try to use, avocado as mayonnaise, whatever, I break out in hives. It's too much. You know what I'm saying? So that goes back to with the carmine. A little bit, okay. Too much, I have a reaction. Pressed pigment ingredients, if it's below a certain amount, they're fine. If it's over that, it's a problem. And so looking at ingredients, I do count on brands to say, these shadows are pressed pigments. Or like DD Signature, it says eyeshadow palette, which tells me everything in there is approved. And the way it's formulated has been approved for eye use. But for Ensley Rain, it did not say. And then when you receive it on the back, it says pressed pigment palette. Put that information on the website. That's what I'm saying. So even me trying to be a conscientious consumer, I'm looking at the ingredients, I'm thinking about the history of things and all of that. And I'm like, but it doesn't say, and I get it. Even though my gut told me not to, I got it, and now we're here. Right now, as I'm doing this, I am glad that I had this experience so that I can share this information with you, because it's not as simple as just look at the ingredients. Because if you're like me and you can tolerate a little bit with no reaction, telling me to stay away from that ingredient altogether is not realistic. If it's over a certain amount, that's when it's a problem. And so again, and I do think it's more so the smaller indie brands, which is unfortunate because they do, take a hit because they are smaller. They're trying to build up their base. They're trying to get, people to buy their products. And it's a business, but it's like, if you're hand mixing, do you really know how much of what is in each of those pans? That's the thing. And also, thanks to Sydney Grace, who also has wonderful customer service. One of their response to me, along with other stuff, they were very, very helpful. They were very helpful. Their customer service is amazing as well. They said that a lot of brands just call all eyeshadow products pressed pigments, whether they really are regulated or not. And so that was eye-opening for me. So that made me wonder, like, well, do these people that are formulating the Ensley Rain shadows and not saying they're pressed pigments except on the packaging, are they aware of the difference between eyeshadows and pressed pigments? Because if brands are just saying pressed pigments, and it may not be, why are they saying that? So I kind of feel like, do I know more than they do about what's approved and what's not? And not to be arrogant, but I think I do, because I've looked up stuff. And even though you should look up stuff too before you start formulating products, but if it's a pressed pigment, you have to say it's a pressed pigment. You cannot call it an eyeshadow according to the regulations and the guidelines. Also, I wanted to talk about saying pressed pigments in general. There was a time, years ago, it was like, oh, pressed pigments are, they're more, saturated, they blend better, they're more shimmery. So it was like natural hair brushes. If you want your makeup game elevated, you have to have natural hair brushes. If you want your makeup look bomb, you have to use pressed pigments. And so I think some of the smaller brands will say pressed pigments as a way of saying their eyeshadow is very saturated. When you put it on, it's going to look very opaque. And so I think there's different elements to what's going on here with how much of the pressed pigment ingredient is in there. Is it still by regulation an eyeshadow or a pressed pigment? And do you know the difference between what you can call it? Because I'm thinking, if they do know the difference of what they can call it, why not put it on the website? Why is it just on the packaging and not on the website? So those are all most of the things that were going through my mind. And that's why I did want to do this video, to have you think about these things too. And there's other stuff with the brand. I'm going to mention it, but that's not the pressed pigment thing. That's not why we're here. They did an IG post addressing them not being private label anymore. I stay away from a lot of indie brands because a lot of them do say they're pressed pigment palettes. Another thing they may say is artistry palette or face and eye palette. If it says anything other than eyeshadow palette, I know it's pressed pigments and I stay away from it. That's just based on my history with learning what's what and what I can and cannot safely use. And so for me, private label was never a big deal. And even though, as I said, I didn't buy a lot from indie brands because of the pressed pigments they use, I'm like, if it's private label, so what? Just be transparent, just be upfront. Because charging $80, $90, $100 for a palette in this private label, anybody can buy those shadows and put them in a custom palette and sell it. So it's like you're overselling what this product is. So I do understand the controversy with private label because they're not your own formulation, but you're charging money as if it is. However, Ensley is now formulating their own products. They are no longer private label according to their posts, which again for me was never an issue. And under that post, them saying, I think it was set the record straight, and then they put all the stuff that they were private label and now they're not, and it's a small company, and it's hard to start a business. I'll talk about that later if I don't forget. A lot of people were commenting, and I've seen comments before about it, about their clip art, their IA clip art, the artificial intelligence artwork that they were using for their palettes. And so there was these questions like, did you just see this and take it as your own, meaning steal it, meaning you didn't pay the artist for their work? So that's been the hot topic too, is are you paying these artists for their work? And they said they'll address that in their Instagram stories. And I'm like, a story only lasts 24 hours on Instagram. Like, just do a post like this one. Or if you can address the private label in a post, just write up both separate posts at the same time and then post one and post the other. Like, why, if there's these two things going on, private label is one thing, which they cleared up, but then you have the AI thing, why are you waiting to post that in your stories? And so I'm just kind of like, that's neither here nor there. But I'm just saying that to say, some people are in uproar. And one thing that annoyed me was, and I'll just say it sounded silly. A few comments, well, quite a few of the comments were, when are you going to address, the IA artwork? Do you pay for the artwork? Do you pay for the license? The copyright, all of that stuff. There were a lot of comments like that. So that's why I'm not really going to get into that, because the other people are already on it. On Instagram. But there were a few comments like, well, people don't understand the work that goes into starting a business and formulating your own shadows, and then you're paying out of pocket, you have trouble getting funded, people just don't understand if they need to cut corners, and they need to be okay with cutting corners. And I'm like, okay, excuse me, boo-boo kitty, sweet summer child, starting any business is going to cost you money, period. Why should that be an excuse to cut corners? Especially when you're selling palettes that are like $80, $90. So I was just like, excuse me? What I was reminded of, people have different ethics and people have different morals. If you're okay with somebody cutting corners to start a business, then if you're comfortable with that, go right ahead. I'm not saying either way, because I don't know if they paid for the art or not. I don't know. But I'm just throwing this out there that it did kind of bother me in a way, not too much though, because it's just like whatever, like, because right now I'm just done, because I know I'm not going to buy from the brand because my lids don't like it. So that's the other good thing that came out of this is that I know for sure don't buy their palettes because my lids won't like it. And a reminder to follow my first instinct. If my gut says don't get it, don't get it. I really was pissed at myself, y'all. I was just like, what the fuck did I do? Like, this is $100 fucking. Like, are you kidding me? My gut was like, I told you no. Now look at you. So it was just like this whole thing, like, but yeah. So that's the other issue that's going on with the brand, which is neither here nor there with that. So what I will say is, learn from me. If your gut says don't buy it, don't buy it. My gut said don't buy it, I bought it. And look where we are. I am glad that I tried it because I know for sure that my lids don't like their shadows. And I know for sure I won't be purchasing anything else from the brand because my lids don't like their shadows. Beautiful palettes. Beautiful palettes. Let me say this right here. I am not saying not to support Ensley. I am not saying that. If you didn't hear it and you want to come for me with that, I'm just going to tell you, you missed something in the video. I suggest you go back and rewatch it. I am not saying don't support the brand. The palettes are beautiful. If you don't mind waiting like a month, or if you don't mind pre-order, go for it. The palettes are beautiful. And there's a lot of, there's not even a lot. There's some videos on, Harvest Moon, the new one, Cold Moon, and people are loving it. So I'm not saying don't support the brand. I'm saying if you have sensitive lids, buyer beware. If it was cheaper, I wouldn't care. But $100? If it was like a $20 palette, I would just be like, I just would have threw it in the trash, like whatever. But $100 is a lot of money. And to wait a month. So if you have sensitive lids like I do, and you're at this in between, is it eyeshadow really, or is it pressed pigments? Is it pressed pigments, but low enough to still be in regulation and considered eyeshadow? Am I going to have a reaction? Am I not going to have a reaction? And so when you're going off of information on the website, then you get the palette and it says something else, it's just like, what the fuck? But my gut said don't get it. And I got it. So my gut knew something my brain didn't know at that time. And also with, patch testing, that doesn't work for me. And so and I can't even say, because I used to also email brands, hey, does this palette have pressed pigment in it? But if all they're going to say is check the ingredients, if it's a brand in the United States, they have to say by regulation, whatever shadows in there are not considered eye safe and that they're pressed pigments. And some of these United States brands aren't saying that. And so I don't know if they're just not aware, or they think, it's within regulation. But again, if you're just mixing up stuff, are you measuring out every single thing? And because the percentage of pressed pigments you can have and still call it an eyeshadow is so low, if you're using 6 pressed pigment ingredients, all 6 of those cumulative have to be below a certain percent for you to still say it's an eyeshadow. Do they know that? I don't know. So there's just this whole thing of, you know what? Just stay away from it. And when I got the palette and I saw that, I went through mental gymnastics because all of this was going around in my head. And I was angry at myself for not listening to myself. And I didn't even want the palette. I'm like, I want my money back, but I don't want the palette. I'm not sending it back. I'm not paying to send it back. I'm not paying the restock fee. Like, you already got $100 out of me. You're not getting anything else out of me. But then it was just like all of this stuff in my head. But because I was just so angry at myself and frustrated with the brand, because if they would have put on the website pressed pigment palette, I definitely would not have purchased it. Customer service is good though. Customer service is good. And if you're not sensitive to certain ingredients, go for it. Buy it. The palettes are beautiful. Support the brand if you want to support the brand. But I was going through so many mental gymnastics. I was angry at myself, frustrated with the brand not putting that information on the website. I was fighting back tears because that's how frustrated I was. And it was very emotional because for me, I love doing videos. I love playing in makeup. And then when something happens and it's just like, what the fuck? All that joy is gone. And I was just like, it's not supposed to be this way, but it's my fault because I didn't listen to myself. And so I was just going through all these mental gymnastics, and then it was, should I try it still? Should I not try it? So that was a whole nother thing. And it was just like, I just want to enjoy putting on makeup. So I decided to try it just to be sure, because I'd rather sell new than sell used. It didn't work for my lids, so now I'm trying to sell it used. So, but anyway, that's the story about pressed pigments in palettes that are designed to be used on your eyelids, even though some of the ingredients are not considered eye safe over a certain percentage. And it does matter if a brand says eyeshadow palette or pressed pigment palette, because if it says pressed pigment palettes, I know for sure not to use it. But if you don't say that on your website and it's on the back of the palette that I paid $100 for and waited a month to get, it's just like, excuse me? What? So this is the box it came in, all the original packaging. They packaged it very well. It's in my Mercari store. I'm hoping just to break even. I have other stuff in my Mercari store too. The link is down below. So the first lesson here is always pay attention to your gut feeling. And if your gut tells you don't get it, boo-boo, don't get it. Just don't. Don't try to rationalize, well, it doesn't say it's press pigments. It doesn't say it's not. I say, no, if your gut says no, the answer is no. Number one. Number two, understand as much as possible which ingredients do give you issue. And also if it's just a certain amount, or just stay away altogether. I know some people who are allergic to coconut. So if there's coconut extract or coconut whatever in like skincare or makeup, they're like, I know I can't use it. I'm allergic to everything and anything coconut. Skincare, makeup, food, whatever. They're like, I know. But something like this, some amounts my lids tolerate and some don't. And I do believe it has something to do with the levels of how much is in there. But then do they even know? And if it's an eyeshadow, it's not a pressed pigment. If it's a pressed pigment product, it's not an eyeshadow. And I don't know if brands know that. And so this is to help you just to think about these things. If you're using eyeshadows and you're having reactions and you don't know why, I hope this might help you try to figure it out. It took me over 15 years, I lie to you not, to figure out, damn, it's pressed pigments, or damn, it's carmine. Even when I restarted this channel, I was going back and forth over, well, this palette has carmine in it. That palette doesn't bother me. This palette has carmine in it. This palette does bother me. So then I'm like, am I allergic to carmine? The video is still up and it's busted. It's horrible. That video sucks ass. But I left it up because it might be informational to somebody. So it was like, am I allergic to carmine or not? And the answer is, it depends on how much is in it. But some people were also saying, why do people, criticize small brands? I take it as constructive criticism. But again, I'm not a small brand. If people are questioning something you're doing, and because you are small, you have a lot more say on what you can change and tweak and make better. So as you grow the right way and for the right reasons and without the controversy. And so I'm hoping that the brand does realize that and that they don't get defensive. I haven't seen them being defensive yet. And again, their customer service is really great. In my experience, their customer service was really great. So it is a learning opportunity for them as well. Like, take this information, take these questions, and just make things better. I don't know if they'll get anything from my experience, because this is my side, because they did offer, they were like, we don't do refunds, but we will work it out, or if you wanted a different palette. And I'm thinking, I don't want a different palette. I done had a bad reaction to this one. And then I would have had to send it back, and I had asked about a prepaid label. They ain't say nothing about prepaid. So I'm just like, I'll just put it in Mercari, because that'll be easier. Even if it sits there for 6 months, but anyway. So if your gut says no, the answer is no. Don't try to rationalize. Don't try to justify. Don't get caught up in the hype. Your gut says no, boo-boo, child, troll. The answer is no, don't get it. Also, paying attention to the ingredients as much as you can. And I can't even really say pay attention to the website information, because sometimes the website information is different than the information on the back of the palette. So then we're still just like, I'm trying to be a conscientious consumer here. Can the brand help me do that? You know what I'm saying? So and that's why, again, you see me with the same brands. And so 2024, I'm looking at my makeup palette. You're going to see Pat McGrath, Dee Dee Signature, Natasha Denona, Nomad, Matte Cosmetics, Lethal Cosmetics. What else did I not say? What am I missing? Martine Cosmetics, if they come out with another palette similar to 669. Oh, Notoriously Morbid too. I can wear some of their things. And some of their stuff does say these are pressed pigments, and then other palettes are like eyeshadow palettes. And so I'm looking at the eyeshadow palettes because I know I can wear those with no problem. And I appreciate how they do that, how they put what it is for people like me, because then I know what I can buy and use without any problem. And so, my circle, the brands I use, it's small. And if you saw my eyeshadow palette collection, those are the brands you're going to keep seeing, because those are the brands that work for me. A lot of indie brands, as I said, they do use pressed pigments. So I know I'm not going to be buying or using those. So in a way, it saves me money because I would buy a lot more stuff. But then in a way it doesn't, because then I just buy more of the brands I can use without irritation. But so I hope this video made sense. I hope if you do have sensitive lids that this was helpful to you. If you do not have sensitive lids, I hope that this was informational to you. And whatever the case, you know, if you don't have sensitive lids, at least have empathy for those of us who do. If you see somebody complaining about, oh my gosh, I didn't know this had pressed pigments in it, don't be like, well, just get over it. Well, if your lids were cracked and peeling and your eyeballs were swollen for 3 days, how would you feel? And that is some of the reactions I have to it. It's horrible. But anyway, so I hope this video accomplished what I wanted to be informational and to help those who didn't know about, you know, ingredient type things to just have some kind of understanding, and also some more information about FDA regulations. And again, I will link that video down below. Yeah, because it is a serious thing for those of us who have sensitivities, and it's not as easy as a patch test. It's really not. The skin on my eyelids is different than skin elsewhere on my body. I don't care what nobody says. And I know that from experience too, because I've done patch tests. It was fine. Put it on my lids. It wasn't fine. So it's like, don't tell me just do a patch test. And don't tell me read the ingredients, because I've done that. But United States brands, they need to list stuff. They should be listing things and putting information according to the regulations. And people say FDA, they're just, 25 years behind. I'm glad they're behind, because it helps me out. That helps me out, because them having that regulation keeps me from buying stuff that I'm going to have issues with. But there will come a point in time where they may be updated, and maybe they will approve pressed pigment use for eye use, eyelid use. And if so, I'll just keep sticking with, me, Natasha, Pat, Lethal, Mac, Notoriously Morbid. It's just a lot, y'all, and it can be frustrating, but it's also lessons to be learned. And so I hope that you did learn something. I hope you heard me clearly. Ensley Rain customer service was great. If you don't have sensitive lids, by all means, purchase their palettes. Like, seriously, I'm not being sarcastic. The palettes are beautiful. The colors are beautiful. The shimmers be shimming, and the mattes, they look so smooth and they apply so well. Support the brand. I am not saying not to support the brand. So I hope you're hearing me clearly. I'm expecting a few comments saying I said that or bashing a brand, which clearly I'm not. I'm sharing information here along with my personal experience, which is valid because my experience is my experience. But yeah, I went back and forth, as I said, on whether or not to even do this. But I felt obligated because I'd want to know this information because I have sensitive lids. And for people who are not aware that these types of things happen. So yeah, I'm going to go because I feel like I'm starting to just go in circles now. But thank you for being here. Comments are always welcome. If you watch this and you appreciated me sharing this, thumbs up the video. If you're like, this bitch crazy, I don't care. Let her eyeballs swell and pop out of her head. Thumbs down. I don't care. Like, whichever. But I am glad that you're here and that you did hear this information. What you do with it is what you do with it. If you're not subscribed and you did enjoy the video, feel free to subscribe. Click the notification bell. I upload a lot. And there's always lots of information down below if you are interested in this palette. It's in my Mercari store. That link is below. And I will say this as well. If you're watching this video and if you are interested in that palette, I ship within like 2 business days, like seriously. So if you're interested in this palette, I use 16 of the shades once. The other ones I didn't use at all. If you're interested in it, send me a message and let me know first, and I will take a few dollars off. Because regular people, I don't negotiate. But if you let me know you saw my video or you watched my channel, I will take a few dollars off. So that's going to be it for this video. So thank you for being here. As always, self-acceptance, self-love, that is the Crazy Troll Nation way. Thank you, and you will see me soon.